Mikhail, hi.
Hello.
Take me back to this moment. It's 2014. You're in India. You just booked and produced one of the top artists, Major Lazer, on a national headline tour. It's 10 days before the concert's supposed to kick off. You get a call from Diplo, and he says what?
Yo, let's shoot a music video, bro.
Yeah.
While we're in India. He's like, can we get a castle? Can we get elephants? Can we get this? Can we get that?
How old are you at this point?
23.
23.
Sometimes I look back at that person and I'm like, how did you not die? You know?
I know that feeling. How do some stories go viral, captivating billions of viewers globally? Today, on Curiosity Storyteller Studio, we explored that phenomenon with Mikhail Mehra. Mikhail has directed and produced dozens of music videos, commercials, and most recently has ventured into feature films. In this episode, Mikhail shares stories from his filmmaking journey from Mumbai, where he studied astrophysics before his passion for storytelling propelled him to film school in San Francisco. We covered the EDM movement's beginnings, the story of how he brought the first concert experiences to ever fuse live music and innovative video content to the world, and also, Mikhail wrote a culturally inspired screenplay that our company Curiosity Entertainment helped develop that is being executive produced by Diplo. Get the story behind our story. Join us as we delve into how Mikhail continues to push the boundaries of storytelling in music videos, commercials, and his upcoming feature films. Discover the secrets behind his visionary work and how he crafts stories that continue to captivate millions. On Curiosity's Storyteller Studio. So what's that feeling then? You get a call. You've had some experience, you've done some music videos that we're going to get into and share with everyone. But in that moment, you get this call from Diplo. He's like, I want elephants, I want dancers, I want a music video in 10 days. And you say, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm like, let's go, right? I think that's how I kind of get myself in a little bit of trouble, is because I'm getting better at it. But obviously, this is not something I could say no to, but I also want to make everything happen.
Sure.
You know, I want everything to happen in the best possible way. And then so I'll often, and some people say yes, and then they fuck up, and then they're like, oh, by the way, can I curse
Yeah,
on
you
here?
can curse.
Tremendous. And, you know, some people fuck up, and I'm just like, I'll die before I do that. Like, the mission must be complete.
Yeah, me too. So he says, let's go. You filmed this video. Let's talk specifically about this video, because what happened next was a viral sensation. You hit almost 2.7 billion views.
Excuse me, 3.5.
Sorry, 3.5 billion views with this music video, and it catapulted you onto a completely different level than you had been before. So you're there. You put together this beautiful music video. It's full of culture. Tell me how you put this together, what your visualization of the process was, how you conceptualized it as a 23-year-old who's just been given the chance of a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, first of all, I was in the eye of the storm already, producing 3 massive 10,000 person concerts in 3 different cities in one weekend with Major Lazer, who come with 20 people from America. So I'm dealing with immigration, government, taxes, permits. There's no infrastructure at that time in India for concerts. So you literally have an empty field and then you build everything from scratch. So it's like, I'm dealing with all this. I have Viacom, who's very tense with me at all times because
we gave you money.
Right. And they're like a full-fledged strategic investor / partner. And I'm like, all your content sucks. I'm making everything. So I'm also making the commercials, the digital content, and also I'm actually sitting there editing it, directing it. So all this is going on. And then, Wes is like, yo, let's do a music video. And I'm like,
for all of you listening, Wes is Diplo's name.
I know Wes. So when he hits me, I'm like, dude, I've been waiting for this. I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay, so let's bring everybody back. Before the 3.5 billion views, you're talking about a mentality and an approach to life that's just, it has no fear in it. and you are taking chances as a very young adult who is now in this world. So let's lay some foundation for everyone. You were born in Mumbai. You were born in India. And when do you move over to the United States? How old are you?
Right after I turned 18, 2009, I'm in San Francisco. Never been to America before.
Okay, so let's take a step back to India, because I know, like, I spent part of my childhood in India too. For you, what was that influence? And what was it like? How many siblings do you have?
I'm an only child.
You're an only child. So you're an only child growing up in Mumbai. Mm-hmm. What are the things that are affecting your desire to eventually grow into storytelling?
Well, I remember always just having completely outlandish schemes and plans for my life. Like, I think when I was a kid, I was obsessed with wrestling, WWF, which is not cool apparently, but whatever. Shout out Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I wanted to be a wrestler.
That's great.
And then
I wanted to be an Olympic ice skater.
I think you could have done it.
I could have done it.
I've seen you move, very precise, Then, I had a small stint where I was about to become a professional snooker player.
Oh, wow.
Ages 9 to 12. Yeah.
Okay.
I was really good. I was like 11 years old, beating like 50-year-old dudes.
Snooker. Can you, for those who didn't grow up in India, can you explain snooker?
It's like a pool table, but it's 3 times the size. It's far more difficult. It's got like a point system. Mm-hmm. You have to wear slacks and a vest. And the only people who play are like old dudes, gamblers.
And you're a 9-year-old snooker player.
I'm 9 years old.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, because my dad used to play when he was young, and he had real potential, but then he went down the gambling path and, the screwing around path, and he wanted to start me young. And I remember there was a club we used to go to. All the clubs in the city had an age limit. Under 18, you can't get in. But our club had a height limit. And my dad's like, put on some shoes, stand on your tippy toes, we're going in. And I just like stood up and like barely made the line, and then I was in.
So I'm sure being around so many adults as a kid and just, watching your dad take these chances and learning how to win, that had something to do with kind of this mentality.
Yeah, I would say actually my mom is brazen. I've seen her operate my whole life. Like, she can just bend rooms and people and worlds to her will. She's fearless. And then my dad is very like professional and smooth and like just a smooth operator. Like, every time he walks into any establishment, everybody's like, everybody's like, oh, what's, you know what I mean? Oh, here's your table. Like, it's like a little Goodfellas vibe. So, and he's so professional and so buttoned up that actually when I would email back in the day, and I would write like how I learned from observing my dad, right? So, and then people would meet me and be like, "Oh, you're not 40, dude," and I'm just like some 22-year-old kid, but like I kind of by osmosis, kind of got that kind of professionalized, buttoned-up aspect from my dad, and then I kind of got the fearlessness from my mom.
I actually relate to that a lot, coming from the product of Indian parents who are very highly educated. You just kind of learn early on how to stand on your own feet and how to communicate with others. You say that you fell in love with this idea of filmmaking, and then that brought you to film school in San Francisco. So what is this moment where, because tell us a little bit. You were going to be an astrophysicist or study astrophysics,
yeah.
Which I'm sure was well, tell us what that was about, and then where this moment where you were like, actually, I'm going to go to film school.
Well, I can pinpoint the moment. Well, growing up in India, you either did commerce or science.
Sure.
There was no third thing. Art class was a free period where we just fucked around. Art was like for the losers or, excuse me, for, as they say in India, the gone cases, So it wasn't even a consideration. I even still, like, people call me an artist or something. I still find it more technical and crafty than like artistry. But yeah, so I don't know. I ended up after Scheme 5, I'm like, all right, I'm going to be an astrophysicist. purely because I think I was going through a lot of existential angst about like trying to understand the universe, and my family's fairly philosophical, and I just had the basic existential questions about why, where did we come from? What is humanity?
Curiosity, yeah.
Curiosity. Maybe that's why we're such good friends. And yeah, I remember I'm like, all right, I'm going to do astrophysics. And everybody was like, we're not saying you're dumb, but astrophysics? Like, maybe be a chef,
That's funny.
And I remember like I had a tutor and I was trying to learn like these abstract, insane, mathematically laced physics stuff. And I was bored out of my mind. I couldn't even grasp it, to be frank. And I would escape by watching films.
Movies, yeah. For me, movies became a way to kind of also understand the the two different cultures that I was growing up in. And, that world of storytelling was something that transported me. And I also really resonate with, like, as a kid, I wanted to be an Olympic ice skater, and then I wanted to be an Olympic gymnast, and then I wanted to be an astronaut, and then I wanted to be, and it was that curiosity about how all these different vantage points and views and lives would be to lead that led me into storytelling.
Yeah. And I think you grew up partly in America, mainly your formative years.
Yeah,
yes?
I went to school in India twice. So
Yeah.
I went when I was 9 years old. I ended up going to school in India, and then again as a teenager. So but we spent every summer, every winter, every other summer, every other winter there. So I spent a lot of time there, and it did watching how so many people grow up without anything and still manage to be happy really helped me understand imagination and the fact that everything is not material.
Interesting, because so you had, I don't want to say the luxury, but you had these like dialectical or switching vantage points.
Yes.
So then you also had questions of identity.
Yes.
Which I guess you started reconciling through art and cinema.
Yes. Yes. So you tell me now the moment that you were like, I'm going to go to film school.
I had been expelled from boarding school.
Wow.
I went to a lot of different schools. I got expelled from boarding school. My parents were just like, you're done. You're just garbage. You're a garbage person. And I was, listen, I was mischievous. I wasn't like bad. Or maybe I was, arguable. But I was not doing anything. I remember I used to go play poker at friends' houses and just play home games. And just floating through life. And I had this desire to do filmmaking, but I wasn't really acting on it. And it's so funny, my parents tell me now that they like reverse psychology tricked me to going to America, where they're like, we're not sending you, you're just gonna waste money. Like, and then I'm like, no, wait, I'm gonna go. And I'm gonna prove it to you that I'm not an idiot. And like they kind of reverse engineered me and said, we're not even sending you anywhere. Like just be here, it's fine. Like go get a job or something. Like you can't just sit here, like go get a job. And then it's funny, I'm like, no, I'm going. And then, that was the moment where I just started looking up schools on the internet. And I found like a trade school, an art school in San Francisco that I wanted to go to USC. I wanted to go to UCLA, but I didn't have the grades. I didn't have the transcripts. I'd been expelled. Like, they weren't going to take me.
So you end up in San Francisco, and now you fall into the underground, like, rave scene.
Yeah.
In terms of how that built your worldview when you started telling stories and you picked up a camera, what is it about that rave scene and the family and the visuals and et cetera? How has that affected the way that you direct and the way that you see visuals and the way you approached your first music videos?
I mean, it had a huge influence. One was because, first of all, I didn't even have a camera. I had a buddy, shout out George Quist, who was a skateboarder. And he would...
he let you borrow his camera, right?
To take into like sketchy Oakland warehouse raves.
That's a good friend.
Great friend. He let me. He lent that to me, and I would just film like crazy. Like I would, it's funny because when I was in art school, I had an editing teacher, Bar Zubov. He was a great guy, and he taught us like really classical language of editing and how to do things in like a very classic Hollywood, studio style of editing. Like, this is how you organize your bins and your footage and like da-da-da. So I was really applying concepts that I was learning from Boris in like a sweaty Oakland rave where there was a 30% chance I'd get stabbed.
I'm sure that taught you how to think on your feet and let's talk a little bit about the work that came after that, right? So you've made music videos with, of course, Major Lazer and with Diplo, but also you did a great piece with, I think it's Oatness, who for the Hercules video for Disney when they did the big theme song.
Yeah.
You've done work with Soulja Boy, Gorgon City, Delaney James. They're Milwaukee. You just got back from Africa from shooting a video with them and another one with Diplo. Artists like Skrillex and Benga, Major Lazer. What is for you when you're working on collaborations with all these different artists? How do you make room for whatever their style is? I've watched all your music videos and they're very different from piece to piece. You're obviously taking in a lot from those artists. How do you understand them better as an artist? And then how does that play into the way you create visuals?
Very early on, I made a decision because I edit all my own shit. So I'm an editor, so I have to listen to the song like a million times. So very early, I made this decision with myself that I'm only going to work with music and people that I actually like. I'm not going to just chase stuff for the sake of it. And I had got this guidance also from just being around these artists. That was how they moved. I was always learning from just being around them via osmosis. So I'm already only working with people who I look up to whose work I really enjoy.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I've been kind of lucky in that sense that I've got the opportunity to keep doing this. It's very rare that I'm doing something that I don't like.
This episode was brought to you in partnership with Little Black Tux. Little Black Tux is my go-to when I need a timeless look. Whether I'm speaking on a film panel, walking a red carpet, or need a bold, sophisticated look for a photo shoot, Little Black Tux has me covered. Little Black Tux isn't just a clothing company, they're a company with a story, a strong why. And I love a good story. They're breaking boundaries and creating clothing that empowers women with versatile, upscale options. I love my Little Black Tux, and I know you will too. Okay, so now you're going on to do a video with Soulja Boy. What is your prep? Can you walk us through that? Because each of these artists are very different. So how are you getting into their mind frame to create something for them?
Well, it's interesting. The Soulja Boy one is a claymation music video.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about it.
So I started off this collaboration with a gentleman named Sam Barnett. So a few years prior, a good friend of mine, Grand Theft, who's a great producer, musician, DJ, he's a good friend of mine, and he sent me his song, and he sent me the album art. And the album art was him made of sushi.
Made of sushi?
Yeah. So there's this artist on the internet who takes like famous people and remakes them in sushi. So he sent me this album art and he's like, dude, let's finally do a music video. Right?
Okay.
And I'm like, hell, let's go. Let's go. And I see that sushi and I'm like, that's the video. We have to remake this sushi guy. I don't want to do anything else. I want to remake sushi guy and I want him to go on an adventure. And Aaron, Grand Theft, was like, how? What? How do we even do this? I grew up watching Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
And I loved Wallace and Gromit so much. And it's even looking back, it feels there were 100 episodes, but there were 3, And so I'm like, all right, this is going to be my homage to Wallace and Gromit. And that's kind of my process before every music video is I think about what's best for the piece. And also I don't like doing the same thing again. Mm-hmm.
That's very apparent in your work.
Yeah, I'm very I don't like doing the same thing again at all. It has to be, I have to be in some way progressing, and so I'm like, all right, claymation, don't know anything about claymation. Terrible with my hands, I can't really do anything with my hands except play snooker and tennis. Can't draw. So I'm like, all right. So then the idea is Wallace and Gromit claymation sushi adventure. And then I had found this guy on Reddit who had made like a...
On Reddit?
On Reddit. There was just a post on Reddit about this guy who made a sci-fi claymation show. And I'm like, please be in LA. Please be in LA. And then I've tracked down his email. And I could tell he's like a very intellectual, artistic guy, you know. And I'm like, he might look at me and be like, who's this asshole, you know. So I wrote him like a very nice note. And I said, I would love to work with you, da-da-da-da. And like, he agreed to meet me for coffee. And then we met for coffee. And then I think he's like, all right, this guy's not an asshole. So, you know, so I...
As LA meetings go.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure you thought the same. So, you know, and then I made a treatment about these two sushi that go on adventures, fall in love, and then they die. Because my aim was to make people cry at the end of the video. And yeah, that's kind of how that project, the claymation project, came about.
Okay, so I want to ask you some specific questions about claymation and animation and some of the modes that you use to tell your storytelling with. But before I do that, I just want for everyone listening, I'm sure your story, you're a boy from Mumbai, you move out here for college, you end up in San Francisco, you fall in love with rave music. Okay, but I just named a bunch of really big artists. Can you bridge that gap for us? How did you end up with all these artists and working for them at such a young age?
So, I mean, I dropped out of college very quickly because I started working. I think it was also a consequence of electronic music was still in the underground, and it was a very small
community.
But it was like a very small world, and there were only like 3 of us making videos. You know, there was me, there was this guy called Iwax. There were like 3 people making videos, and because you know there was no Instagram.
Yeah.
Also, there was no Instagram, you know, and there were 3 of us making these videos, and I guess I just, you know, you become friends, you see each other around, and then we're all kind of rising.
Together.
The music started getting kind of this global acclaim. First, of course, West Coast. Then we saw it kind of start move to New York. And so the thing was just rising, and I think I just happened to be there.
Okay. So let's go specifically then. Actually, I have one more question. Growing up with Indian parents, my parents were actually very supportive of my pursuit in arts, but there was a double entendre of like, and also have a backup plan. And I think that's very common in first generation kids, children of immigrants themselves, etc., especially from that region. Who was anyone standing next to you and being like, this is a great idea, Mikhail, let's go to India and film media? Like, were they worried? Is this like, did you have a support system as you were building this storytelling life?
I think my parents were always very supportive in that they were like, just do what you love, what makes you happy. And I also think the bar for me was so low. Like, there was no expectations from me to do anything. That once they saw, like, you know, once they saw that I started getting some traction, and, you know, they were like, okay, he's at least doing something, you know? And I told them, listen, I'm going to drop out of college. I'm already working. I've got like a book of clients. You know, people are actually paying me money to do this.
I've got a plan.
Yeah, I've got a plan. Well, I sold it as a gap year.
A gap year?
I sold it as a gap year, like a year off. But my parents were like, yeah, fuck it, go. Like, go do it.
That's great.
But everybody else was like, backup plan, beta degree.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah, everybody else was like, this is absurd.
My mom's backup plans stopped when she saw my name on my first movie. Then I never heard about backup plans again.
It's funny. I have a similar experience. It took a very long time for that to happen. I think when I did a video with Shah Rukh Khan, my parents were like, okay, you're not dumb.
I actually was going to ask you about the video with Shah Rukh Khan. So specifically, you coming from a very international background bridged a lot of cultures, and a lot of your work, you're bridging cultures, and you've got You just got back from doing a music video in Africa, Zerb Meraki, and I watched it, and it's full of African dancers, African culture. The ones that you did shot in India were full of Indian culture. Shah Rukh Khan, of course, is a legend in Bollywood, and this music collaboration comes up where you can do a music video with him and Diplo. How did that come about? And tell me, more importantly, I think, when you're looking at cross-cultural collaborations, like how native is that to you, just to naturally do that? And what goes into really understanding how these two cultures should be represented?
Yeah, I think I have like a very strong internal instrument, or I have ideas, very strong ideas about how something should be. Now, whether they're good ideas or bad ideas, the world will often tell me very quickly that's a terrible idea. But so I already have like I want to do this, right? Because I think taste is very important.
Sure.
But I also had friends, like I had an old college friend, Ian, then even like Wes, Diplo, like I actually learned, I think he's kind of the king of like building cultural bridges, And I remember when he came to India, or even when we were discussing like creative stuff, I knew him much before he came to India, because I was like, I'm going to take you to India one day. And he's like, haha, okay, we'll see, It's funny, I met him because I was interviewing him in 2010.
I saw that interview.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be like 15 minutes, and it was like an hour.
That's great.
And the magazine gave me like questions to ask him. I threw him in the bin. I'm like, who killed JFK? Let's go. But so when he would just point at things in India and be like, dude, that's so sick. Look at that. That's so sick. And I'll be like,
oh, you saw it with new eyes.
I saw it with new eyes. I'm like, wait, that's sick?
So cool.
Wait, what? And he's like, dude, look at that. And I remember like my friend Ian would also point at things and be like, dude, that's so, look how cool that is. And he'd point at like, Indian cultural elements, which I had completely tuned out, So I kind of learned from them. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is actually all really cool. And then, that's where it kind of started for me.
It's a brand new perspective looking through someone else's eyes. I'm sure that really changed the way that you shaped a lot of your stories.
Yeah.
I would love to know, let's go back into animation and claymation.
Yeah.
I have some familiarity because I work in the industry, but I think that for listeners, just understanding what the difference is directing something that's live action versus animation and claymation, which is done frame by frame. What is the difference in process? Are you you're taping, stopping, tape? Tell us.
So I give you an example, like we do something like a Milwaukee music video in 1 day. Lean On in 2 days. That claymation video was 47 days. So already you're in a completely different world. I would say it's just a logistical challenge. It's always logistics. I feel like 80%, I think it was an Aronofsky quote where he said like 90% of my job is navigating bureaucracy. Like the 10% is actually the creative. So with the claymation, it was really about like, all right, we have a budget. Claymation shit is usually like $1 bazillion. So we're working within constraints to like create a story that doesn't feel like it's been constrained. And yeah.
But is it shot by shot? Like, tell me.
Yeah. So Sam actually, we came up with the story together, and then Sam actually built everything in his house. He's not using clay, he's using silicone. So he's actually, all those, they're called puppets. They're all real and they all exist. And it is frame by frame by frame. So
you're shooting, you're stopping, he's moving the puppet, you're shooting again, and then and you edited those. So then in editing process, you're stringing them all together. And same with animation, right? Same with I know you did animation for Catalina.
The Whale
Mixer, the Web3 project that came out. And I watched that animation. Same with animation. It's each shot. And then storyboarding for that, is that you're, because you're a self-proclaimed non-artist. Are you storyboarding when you did the animation?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So a shooting ratio, basically, let's just say you usually shoot more than you need, and then you edit it down. So let's just say you shoot double of what you need. Your shooting ratio is 1:2. For the Grand Theft video, our shooting ratio was 1:1. So we had zero margin for error. So everything that we filmed had to go into the video. So it was like storyboarded, mega precise. And then I always try to insert buffer mechanisms. So I put like a couple of clips in there that I knew could like buy me some room.
Why claymation? Just because of Wallace and Gromit?
I looked at the sushi and I'm like, this has to be claymation.
Oh, it's amazing.
What was your animation thing?
Oh, I haven't done animation. I just am aware of how animation is shot. I've actually never worked in claymation, never worked in animation. That's why I wanted to ask the question, because when I look at your body of work, that's the first thing that hits my storytelling mind. I'm like, oh man, that looks like it was a million hours of editing. It looks painful. I don't know how he did it.
It really was. It took like forever. But honestly, sometimes people ask me, that's like my favorite thing I think I've made.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that claymation video is...
Well, it shows your real talent, both as an editor and as a director. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Not a lot of people take it on. I've noticed in a lot of your music videos, and I want to talk a little bit about your film work, that you have these really big dance segments. What is it about dance as a storyteller that you always seem to incorporate like really great ethnic dancers from all around the world doing these great cross-cultural pieces? And I love those moments. You have these like epic moments in your film, in your music videos that not everyone does, by the way, because they're hard to coordinate, they're hard to choreograph, you got to get all those dancers there. So what is it about dance and your storytelling that you feel is so important?
Well, I think it's a product of the material, right? For Lean On, Wes was like, I want to do a big like homage to Bollywood, right? So it was what the material called for. With Mwaki, it was kind of the same thing. We wanted to go to Kenya. We wanted scale. And also, I think I've done music videos where I've tried to do narrative story because, we're all directors. We all want to make movies.
Yeah.
So a lot of time, when I was younger, I was always trying to inject narrative. Like, I'm like, oh, I have a movie idea. How do I squeeze it into this music video? And I realized after a point to stop doing that and just make it what's best for the material. Because if someone wants to watch a story, they can go on Netflix or HBO and watch like one of your TV shows where it's like long form and it's narrative. When I'm on YouTube, I don't want to focus. I just want like a visual treat.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about that, because you're moving now, and you have moved both in the writing capacity, but also as a filmmaker from short form. And the thing about music videos is that they have to be so succinct and keep your attention, and you're really making a lot happen in a very little amount of time. So what's that muscle like changing now to creating these full scripts? We have a script together that we've helped develop together called Black Gold. And, that is a big action comedy, and it's a full movie, right? So for you as a creative, that muscle, what is the difference? And what is that transition? And what are the difficult parts or easy parts? Tell us a little bit about that process as a creative.
Well, I always feel like it all comes from the same place. Even when I did the music festivals, I'm like, I can run a set. I can produce a festival. Like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like, also, it felt congruent. So it's always coming, even when I like redline a contract. It's the same space that all that is coming from, which is probably why I shouldn't be redlining my contracts. But it all kind of comes from the same source inside. So it just becomes about mechanically executing.
The formatting.
Yeah, it's the formatting. It's like, what are the parameters? So I will say writing, though, it took me a good 3 to 4 years. Like of that draft. I mean, you've been there with me for, a substantial part of the journey, but like that, my first draft was unreadable. It was complete nonsense, because I had never written a script before. And I'm like, I watch a lot of movies. I'm kind of smart. Like, I can just write a movie. And it was like, no, you can't. Like, it's like I had to get the reps in. And it took me a good 3 to 4 years of like 30 drafts of that script before someone like a Diplo was like, okay, this is fire, I'll make this.
So when you're going through draft after draft after draft, what are the tricks that you use to keep that storytelling fresh and to not get, I write screenplays as well. And I know sometimes we'll get to a point, me and my writing partner, where we just get stuck and then it's frustrating. And like the idea of going back to page one and refixing stuff is just untenable, because now we're gonna have to go through and fix the whole thing from beginning to end. So what is like for people who are listening, who need to craft their story, have a story in them that needs to get out, what tips or tricks have you found to just kind of tackling that so that the best version comes out of you?
It's funny, and because what you outlined is what you outlined is, it's a common problem, like where a good idea turns into a curse.
Yeah.
Where you're like, right?
Yeah, we know.
Halfway through Act 2, you're like, but what if this happened? And then you're like, oh, why did I have that idea? Now I have to go rewrite the whole thing.
From page one, yeah.
What was really, what's the word I'm looking for? Not validating, but like comforting for me was I read a lot of biographies and autobiographies of writers and directors, right? And I remember I read Steven Soderbergh's autobiography. And he's literally like, it's like his diary. And he's like, I'm in San Francisco, I'm in a hotel room. I'm supposed to send the studio 9 pages of this script by tomorrow. I should really do that. Let me go check my emails for 3 hours. So I'm like, Steven is still doing this after, being a legendary filmmaker and making so many great films. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It's normal to feel that way, where he's like, I don't want to, and we all are there.
None of us have it figured all the way out.
Yeah, and it's like, listen, some writers wake up at like 8 a.m. and they write to like 5 and then they like go for a jog. And I wish I could do that. Maybe I can do that, but like it's always validating to hear the stories of like Steven Soderbergh, or I remember watching some interview with Taylor Sheridan where he's like he couldn't figure something out and he just drove for 6 hours. So when you hear of these giants also deal with these same frustrations and issues and self-doubt, and then you're like, oh, they're human. They're just kind of, it's like, okay, this is normal. It's supposed to suck. It's supposed to be difficult.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you're writing, I just want to tap back into this worldview, because I love that artists both write, and we have the freedom to write the things we've experienced, but also things that we haven't experienced. And when you've written characters that are South Asian, but are out of the box, like you were. And I would love to, like, how important in where we are in film and television right now is that to you, being part of that voice, and that voice that you and I are in many ways trying to make sure is represented?
I mean, to be very frank, I'm quite agnostic to it. I just, I liked that story, and there was lots of me in that story, and it just all came about naturally. And I think when you just do that, like it automatically, all that good stuff happens.
I get that.
Yeah.
So
I didn't start out going like, I also thought like, you also have to think a little bit from a sales perspective also. And I was like, ooh, a story like this about these characters that go here would be so fucking cool.
Sure.
When have you seen this happen? Like when Waki happened in Africa, I wasn't like thinking about, trying to elevate X or elevate Y, because I don't think it's my job to do that. But once the project came about, I was like, okay, this has to be done in a certain manner.
By the way, like the visuals in the Waki video, you just captured such beautiful, beautiful parts of Africa. What a like weird blessing to have such a incredible natural landscape for some of these things. I know how limiting music video budgets can be, and you really, that thing looks so expensive just because how beautiful Africa is.
It really is, and I was going through that same thought process of when Wes landed in India with me, and he was like, "Look at that! Look how sick that is!" Like, look, and he had been to India before and like spent a lot of time. But when I got to Africa, I was like, "Wait, look at that! That's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. Let's go there." And luckily Jake Udell, who believed in me to do the project, trusted me. Him and his brother Alec were like, "We trust you."
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm at least lucky people usually trust me.
I don't know if that's luck. I think that's a combination of who you are. We asked what your favorite drink was before we started this episode, and you answered Black Label rocks with a touch of water. What does that drink mean to you?
It's a classic Indian uncle drink.
Yeah.
And I've been having this drink since, as far back as I can remember. And
The Indian uncles love that Black Label rocks.
excuse me, Adrusha, what's your good name? What's your surname?
My father drinks it all the time. My surname.
What's your surname?
Don't get into this.
Okay. Oh, South, good people.
I would love to talk to you a little bit more about some of your other favorite things. This is a section where we go through a rapid fire that kind of defines you as a character. It's our look into who Mikhail is as a character. And it starts with that Black Label on the rocks. Okay, first thing that comes to mind. Ready? When I say the word home, what do you think of?
Los Angeles.
When I say the word heaven, what do you think of?
Family.
When I say the word hell, what do you think of?
Fire.
Fire.
Mwaki.
That's that visual storyteller in
Yeah.
you. What is the food that you find most comforting?
Butter chicken with cheese naans.
What's that about?
It's just a Mumbai dish, butter chicken. It's just a classic, and it's so comforting.
You're making me so hungry right
Yeah.
now. What sound makes you smile?
Laughter.
How do you define love?
Understanding.
How do you define success?
Lots of money. No, I think just being able to do what you want to do.
How do you define failure?
Lots of money. No, failure is relative.
Mikhail, do you believe in magic?
Absolutely not.
That's about right. Second chances?
Oh, so many people have given me so many second and third chances. How can I not?
How about love at first sight?
Been burned before.
So that's a yes?
Yeah.
Without considering time, ability, or money as an obstacle, if you could do anything or experience anything in the world, what would it be? Learn anything, do anything, experience anything?
I feel like I'm I'm kind of doing what I want to do.
That's a beautiful answer. Who or what would you like to create a story for or about in the future?
Grandparents.
Grandparents? That's beautiful. What word best describes you as a storyteller?
Unique.
What inspires?
I also shop at Uniqlo. Send me jackets.
What inspires or drives you?
What inspires me? The fear of failure.
Mikhail, what is your favorite story?
My favorite story is the story that you and I are writing about our lives right now.
I love that. The story of our lives. Mikhail, thank you so much for being with us on Storyteller Studio today.
Thank you for having me.
We love you.
I love you.